Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence. We go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun. Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence. We go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything, and you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun.
All right, guys. Today's date, May the 12th, 2021, and this is how we got here, the midweek review. If I can get to the intro, that'd be great. As the intro says, I'm your host, most Will Buchanan. On How the Frack We Got Here, we do take the events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. Before I do get started, I do want to sit there and say, first and foremost, we try to be as family-friendly as we can on this podcast, but sometimes words do slip. It happens. We're human. At the same time, there may be things that we may show or talk about or videos that might be of a somewhat graphic or violent nature, so viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, guys, welcome. Now, let's go ahead and get into the nitty-gritty of it. We might as well address the elephant in the room just because, well, it happened.
Of cars here, and this is just one gas station. Drivers here telling me they're waiting up to an hour. That's where the line starts. We can't even see where it ends. Those drivers also telling me they're seeing gas stations run out and they're taking no chances tonight. Tonight, the lines for gas getting longer, from the Carolinas down to Florida. Panicked drivers overwhelming gas stations.
Just got to do what you got to do and just load up on gas and just not try to go too far away from home.
After a long wait at this gas station in South Carolina,
I've been waiting here for 45 minutes just to get gas.
Frustration.
We're out of gas. All out.
Across the Southeast, demand is up 40%. Prices at the pump inching up too. Nationwide, they're 6 cents higher than last week.
I'll spend that extra few bucks. That's the way it is.
Well, I just could have heard there was going to be a run on gas, and we figured I better get it now.
The 5,500-mile Colonial Pipeline is still mostly shut down. Tonight, American Airlines says it's adding refueling stops to 2 long-haul routes this week because of the outage. The timing couldn't be worse, with 37 million people expected to travel this Memorial Day weekend. That's up 60% from last year.
You'll be hoarding gas. If you don't really need it, then don't buy it. And if you are going on a car trip, maybe don't wait till you get to empty, fill up when you're at like a quarter of a tank.
Experts say despite the long lines and empty pumps, if the Colonial Pipeline meets its goal of restoring most service by Friday, there's no real cause for alarm. Tom Yamas.
Yes, there is no real cause for alarm. Only because a bunch of idiots decided that when all they heard was a possible shortage, keep in mind what I just said, a possible shortage, because that's how it happened. Less than 48 hours ago, almost every news cycle sat there and said there's a possible shortage due to a major pipeline being shut down. We didn't have a lot of facts about it. We didn't have a lot of reasons why the pipeline was being shut down. All we know is that all you heard was possible shortage. That's all people need these days, because all it takes is one person to sit there and go, okay, I'm going to go ahead and get gas now. Then just like lemmings, one follows another. And then you get Karen from Facebook, y'all hurry up because they're running out of gas and you might as well fill up your tank now. And unfortunately, even in my home state of Tennessee, Most gas pumps around me right now don't have gas, which I guess is great for all the individual franchise-owned gas stations around here. I mean, it's a nice little payday for you. But in the long scheme of things, I have always said this, that for some odd reason over the last few years, well, actually the last 2 decades, if you will, people have stopped using critical thinking. It's like, okay, for most people out there who didn't get gas, bravo, because you're logical. You're like, I don't need to get gas right now, or you don't need to be in a panicked situation to get gas right now, especially unless you're a delivery driver, Uber, Lyft, you're a transportation business that drives people around town and across states. I can see how that might be a slight concern, because your business is running on fuel, and right now, with everybody and their mama trying to go out and find a gas station on an almost hourly basis, it might be slightly difficult for you guys to get out there and do your jobs. I have been saying this, the simple fact of the matter, guys. The problem is when you have certain groups out there that choose to sit there and, for the lack of better words, be stupid. This is bound to happen. Even if, like I said before with the pipeline, which is about the next part I want to go into, it's just for some odd reason, individuals, when they hear a possible something could happen, they choose to just go straight to the emergency mode instead of saying, wait, let's see how this plays out. Because we didn't always used to scare so easy. I mean, people didn't even think about gas. I'm going to tell you right now, if you really want to be honest, folks weren't even thinking about gasoline and that impact until they heard possible shortage. Because let's be honest, what are the things that you actually have going on that you needed gas, that you need to go ahead and make sure you had a full tank? Because guess what? If you still do the same amount of driving that you were doing beforehand that you had that full tank, you're probably going to be very empty in the next couple of days. And be right back in the same situation. So what was the whole point of you rushing to get a full tank of gas? But again, I get it. I get it to a certain extent. However, there are people out there that are hoarding gas to the point to where I was just like, and let's be honest, if you've been on social media, you saw it. People taking multiple gas cans, people taking plastic containers, which again, guys, please don't fill up in anything but EPA regulated and approved gasoline containers. Those Rubbermaid 20-gallon containers that you see at Walmart and Office Max, all those places, they are not good for gasoline. Please don't do that. And certainly don't use plastic bags. Like I said before, for the simple fact of the matter, I have never seen in 48 hours idiocracy happen with America. Because you see people try to fill up gasoline in plastic bags. I thought it was comical at first. I thought somebody was playing a prank. No, someone really tried to do it. And even more so, someone tried to take other containers that were meant for other chemicals and use that to hold gasoline in. Again, there's no point to hoard. There's no point to panic. Yes, a pipeline was shut down. And the reason why it was shut down was simply because of this.
A criminal gang called DarkSide is behind the largest ransomware attack of its kind, targeting a critical piece of U.S. oil infrastructure. The 5,500-mile Colonial Pipeline that supplies 45% of fuel to the East Coast remains shut down tonight, though Colonial says it hopes to restore service by the end of the week.
Colonial is currently working with its private cybersecurity consultants to assess potential damage and to determine when it is safe to bring the pipeline back online.
Cyber experts say DarkSide is a sophisticated criminal ring that targets English-speaking victims.
So far, there is no evidence from our intelligence people that Russia is involved, although there is evidence that the actors' ransomware is in Russia. They have some responsibility to deal with this.
NBC's Kendallanian.
They're shielded by the Russian state. So at some point, this becomes a U.S. national security problem, not just a criminal problem for corporations.
For years, ransomware attacks have targeted retailers, hospitals, police departments, utilities, state and local governments. Their data held hostage until they pay up.
No, this is not an attack that was unforeseen. Many in the industry have been warning against this.
No word on whether Colonial might pay the ransom demand. Until the pipeline can reopen, the White House is allowing more tanker trucks to carry fuel up the East Coast.
Without that fuel flowing through the pipeline, tank farms that hold product from that pipeline are going to start draining without any resupply.
So, Tom, what should we be bracing for in terms of gas prices?
Yeah, the longer this lasts, the more likely we go over $3 a gallon for national average on gas. That would be the highest we paid since November of 2014, just as we go into the summer driving season.
Born in.
Now again, guys, it's not surprising, okay? Yes, and the funny part is the fact that it didn't say that this Russian hacker group called DarkSide wasn't successful. If anything, this goes to show you that the level of our infrastructure needs to be highly upgraded. If Colonial Pipeline can turn around and see, for the simple fact of the matter that, hey, you guys have an issue that needs to be solved on that side, and they did. They actually shut down their systems just to actually be proactive. Because again, if you're not familiar with the IT world, when ransomware, you know, when you click on that stuff you're not supposed to click on, I'm not judging, I'm not pointing fingers. You saw something you liked, you clicked on it, next thing you know, your computer's locked up, you can't do any sites, your information is held up, and then you see this thing talking about, you know, pay me this amount in Bitcoin or I will, you know, or I will never release your computer, stuff like that. Trust me, as an IT guy, I see ransomware all the time. And yes, the best way I can tell you to defend against it, aside from having, you know, your antivirus updated, your malware updated, your spyware updated, it's using your head. For the simple fact of the matter is, you have to use your head, fellas, and people. I should say not just guys. But like I said, hey, really, hey, really, Vaughn, hey, I felt, did someone feel offended because I sat there and pointed that out? Really, Vaughn? Hey, I'm just saying, look, however, whatever you decide to do on the web is your business. But again, ransomware happens because they attack you on social media. And unfortunately, like I said before, a lot of companies, like Colonial Pipeline, are doing the right thing. They detected ransomware, possible ransomware, so what do? They went ahead and shut down critical parts to make sure things are okay. That's forward thinking, that is mitigating the damage to where, like they said, at the end of the day or at the end of the week, they may be back up and running. But this doesn't take away from the simple fact of the matter, guys, that you're running into the issue of just flat out individuals panicking. Because that's how, you want to know how mass hysteria works? Mass hysteria works because they depend on people to panic. When panicking people start doing stuff, then honestly, chaos is bound to ensue. And trust me, being in Nashville, I have already seen folks fighting at gas stations. I have seen people, and also this also leads to increase in locking gas caps. A lot of people weren't purchasing locking gas caps. I cannot tell you because I've had some people ask me, does AutoZone or O'Reilly's or any of these auto part places carry locking gas caps? It's only because, yes, some folks will try. People will really do that. You know that one Facebook meme of a guy that's siphoning gas and saying, all y'all are filling up and wait till I creep into your house creep into your place at 2 a.m. in the morning. Now, I hope nobody's not doing that, just because of the simple fact of the matter that, look, people carry guns and they have no problem shooting you on the property. So hopefully nobody's not doing that. Really, Vaughn, the videos, I wish I held a RAF back a day or two. Oh, you would have plenty of material to work with, Vaughn. You would have had, a plethora of material to work with. Especially there was one lady in a video that was filling up gasoline in a plastic bag. I wish I could make this up. It actually happened. But again, guys, for all those who are hearing my voice right now or watching this podcast, don't panic every time something comes up, because that's what chaos happens. And I said this to my friends, I said this to my Facebook posts, I sat there and said, had everybody acted normally, we would have been fine. had everybody drove normal, had everybody got gas at normal times and at normal intervals, and didn't all just bum rush the gas station at one time, you wouldn't have a bunch of empty pumps around wherever you live, which right now is affecting more of the southern states and eastern seaboard. So we haven't really heard a lot from the Midwest and the South, and the Midwest and the East and the West Coast, mainly because they work off a different pipeline from the Louisiana coastline. So they're not going to be affected in the same way we are. But still, if we simply acted normal, we would not be in the situation we're in right now. And that alone should tell you a lot. That a lot of people, like I said before, it's just when you kill education, you kill critical thinking, which is another thing I'm going to go into at the moment, just because I want to talk about, again, my home state of Tennessee. Tennessee, who I like to call progressively backwards. And I mean that in the nicest possible way. Reason being for two reasons. Number one, Governor Bill Lee, who's also an idiot, has sat there and said that, you know what, people who are working who are getting unemployment, who aren't working but getting the extra $300 on top of what they're getting on a weekly basis, are not working right now. So in order to make sure that people are working, we're going to take away the extra $300 federal unemployment supplement from those individuals. I wish I could make that up. Tennessee is withdrawing a $300 weekly unemployment supplement program, a decision made by Governor Bill Lee that comes as many Republicans argue the additional funds allow low-wage workers to make more money while staying at home. Let me repeat that. A decision by Governor Bill Lee that comes as many Republicans argue the additional funds allow low-wage workers to make more money while staying at home. Y'all, let's think about this. This is Republican / conservative logic at best. If you sit there and you say, you low-wage workers are getting more from unemployment than from your job, then you're going to be less inclined to work. Which again is not true, because for some odd reason, when it comes to Republicans, they seem to forget that there's this little thing called a pandemic that's still going around. Folks are still worried about. Folks who have kids are worried about how the kids can be taken care of, because schools. I mean, for most schools, I know for Metro, they're starting to wind down toward their summer vacation. A lot of counties are starting to kind of, because they have the extra snow days and the stuff they've been out for remote learning, they're about to hit theirs. I mean, a lot of parents, or especially with kids, are having situations of trying to figure out how their kids are going to be watched for, how they're going to try not to bring COVID in their homes. There's a lot more going on. And then to me, the piece de resistance, low income wage workers. So you already know they are getting, here's what I say about Republicans. You already know that they're getting paid crappy. Keep in mind, most fast food workers outside of certain restaurants aren't making above $10, aren't making not even $9 an hour. I said you'd be hard pressed to find some outside of some certain franchises. Most places are maybe paying on the low side as low as $7.29, which is the current minimum wage right now. You'd be hard pressed to find some that are paying as high as $10 or $11 an hour. And even then, it's still considered low income. Because again, the service industry, which is food, catering, all that stuff, is a large industry. And again, you have a lot of franchises like McDonald's, like Wendy's, like Burger King, and all these other places that a lot of their employees are usually let's be honest, they're the bottom of the totem pole. The ones that nobody cares about, and the ones that swear up and down that they can fire one and pick one up in the same day. They do not care about attrition. They do not care that, they do not care if one or two walk out, because those one or two can be replaced. But they do care when, again, a lot of people start walking out. That's why I didn't get mad. Like, again, I live in Tennessee. I didn't get mad when I start seeing those signs that everybody posts on Facebook. We're closed because nobody wants to work. That's the kicker. Like, I've seen that on a couple of McDonald's and Wendy's signs. We're closed because nobody wants to work. Everybody quit. And the realization behind all of this is that the wage income gap is real. And again, the reason why I keep saying, had the minimum wage been $15 an hour, we would not be having this discussion. Although it does need to be higher just for records and production purposes, because technically it should be closer to $23 an hour. But again, I digress. It should be at least $15 an hour, because the whole point of the minimum wage is that it's the lowest amount to where you can live off of and still, have housing, have clothing, have food, have the basic necessities, if you will. That should be that freaking simple. But again, they will sit there and they will argue. Because again, this is conservative logic, folks. That Governor Bill Lee, the man who couldn't even tell you whether or not that Tennessee need to have a mask requirement, has come to the swift decision that we are no longer going to participate in the federal pandemic unemployment program. And again, this is what kills me. That they can make a decision about this. That they can make a decision. They can make a decision about federal unemployment. They can make that decision. But the messed up part about it is, I keep on saying this is a full-on blitz. Why is it a full-on blitz? Because not only do they want to make sure that low-income workers are forced to go back to working in unsatisfactory conditions at low wages, they're attacking education too. Because again, Governor Bill Lee decided that in the Tennessee legislature passed a bill that withholds funds from schools teaching about systemic racism. Let's think about this for a second. Tennessee passed a bill that says they will withhold funds from schools teaching about systemic racism. Quote unquote, Tennessee lawmakers have passed a bill that will withhold funding from schools teaching about systemic racism and white privilege. This is Bill HB 0580/SB0623. Officially cleared the General Assembly Wednesday, which was one of the several to pass on the day lawmakers adjourned for the year. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your tax dollars at work. Because again, keep forgetting, most of the caucus in the House and Senate for the local states, especially in Tennessee, is white. Although again, this actually goes into a video that I actually showed last week, which was about schools teaching critical race theory. Now, for all those that don't remember what critical race theory is basically explaining history as we've seen it, to sit there and say that yes, there's always been a system of systematic racism and white supremacy. And the funny part is the GOP hates it. I wonder why. Because again, in my opinion, if something is hated, that means something must be true. So in this case, if the GOP hates critical race theory, systemic racism, they hate those words because the simple fact of the matter is, it reminds them of something. It's an uncomfortable truth. Like, for example, as reading this is the funny part. One of the actual politicians decided to sit there and state, and I quote, "Critical race theory is rooted in critical theory, which argues that social problems are created and influenced by societal structures and cultural assumptions." Quoted by State Senator Katrina Robinson, a black Democrat from Memphis. How ironic that a body made up of a single majority of white privileged men can determine whether How ironic that a body made up of a simple majority of white privileged men can determine whether even my grandchildren can see reflections of themselves in the history lessons at their school. Crazy, isn't it? Crazy. Even so, even an amendment by one of the representatives, because this was the funny part. This is the part that made me laugh a little bit. And I say this, that under an amendment that was put in by Representative John Ragan of Oak Ridge, schools would not include the following subjects in their teaching curriculum or allow teachers to use supplemental materials that include the following concepts. One race or sex is inherently superior to another race or sex. An individual by virtue of the individual's race or sex is inherently privileged, racist, sexist, or oppressive, whether consciously or subconsciously. An individual should not be discriminated against or receive adverse treatment because the individual's race or sex. An individual's moral character is determined by the individual's race or sex. An individual, by virtue of the individual's race or sex, bears responsibility for actions committed in the past by other members of the same race or sex. An individual should not feel discomfort, guilt, anguish, or another form of psychological distress solely because of the individual's race or sex. A mediocrity is inherently racist or sexist or designed by a particular race or sex to oppress members of another race or sex. This state of the United States is fundamentally or irredeemably racist or sexist, promoting or advocating the violent overthrow of the United States government, promoting division between or resentment of a race, sex, religion, creed, nonviolent political affiliation, social class, or class of people, or ascribing character traits, values, moral, ethical codes, privileges, or beliefs to a race or sex, or to an individual because of the individual's race or sex. Let me break all that down to you. That is a white person sitting there saying, please do not talk about the fact that, yes, we've been getting over on people. That's pretty much what it says. I cannot stress that enough. That whole thing. Because, you know, the funny part is, I can find one counterpoint to everything on here. Even so much that even this same representative who wrote this amendment sat there and said, an email forwarded to him about a 7-year-old girl from Williamson County who was upset after a discussion in school. Quote unquote, the little girl told her mother, I am ashamed that I'm white. The daughter then asked her mother, is there something wrong with me? Why am I hated so much? Ragland said, the 7-year-old is now in therapy. She is depressed. She doesn't want to go to school. Guys, again, I am not speaking to children, but instead of the mother doing the right thing and explaining systemic racism and how minorities are viewed in America, she decided to put the 7-year-old in this. According to the senator, according to the representative, the 7-year-old is now in therapy. She is depressed and she doesn't want to go to school, but she's white. And I will keep on saying this only because she's white. Again, it's a perfect time to educate. And again, Tennessee drops the ball once again that when they can finally do something progressive, they choose not to. And I would like to think that Governor Bill Lee is going to refuse this. He is for it. That alone should tell you exactly where we are in this. Even more so that Tennessee is not the only state. Other states are starting to join we're going to not take the federal pandemic assistance benefits. Tennessee's not the only one. A growing number of Republican-led states are doing this. Mississippi, Governor Tate Reeves said, quote unquote, it has become clear to me that we cannot have a full economic recovery until we get the thousands of available jobs in our state filled. The purpose of unemployment benefits is to temporarily assist recipients who are unemployed through no fault of their own. Again, that's not surprising. Arkansas, South Carolina, and Montana also have all said that they would end their involvement within the program within the next month. Guys, so again, what did we just say? Tennessee, Arkansas, South Carolina, Montana. 4 states, all Republican-led. And the most ironic part I'll say about this, Chris Rock said it best. Chris Rock said it best. If you really want to understand conservatism and Republicans and realize how easily they are swayed, look at Kentucky. Mitch McConnell is the richest U.S. senator that we have. Kentucky is by far the poorest state in the United States. That alone should tell you a lot. And again, it's extremely difficult to turn around and sit there and say that they're helping. This is hurting. Because a lot of people, are starting to a lot of people, which I do like, do not get me wrong, a lot of people are starting to realize, and I love that they're starting to realize, they're starting to realize that working for peanuts on a 40-hour work week is crazy. They are starting. A lot of people are starting to wake up and realize that that not only is unregulated capitalism dangerous, it's the fact of the matter is that a CEO's pay is 500 to 1. We are the only country in the world whose CEO pay, which means it would take 500 employees to equal up to what one CEO makes. And trust me, that gap is getting a lot bigger than that. So, all I got to sit there and say is, guys, midterms are next year. Midterms are next year. If you want to make sure that things are being done right, again, this is the Republican. But I'm not trying to go into a rant here, guys, but this is the Republican setup. Now, like I said before, not only with the fact of they're trying to make it seem like, because I guarantee this was, and mark my words on this day, on May 12th, mark my words, for the simple fact of the matter is that Republicans will set up the stage to where they can turn around and be like, it was all Joe Biden's fault. Keep in mind what the Republicans are doing. They're going to cancel the extra unemployment benefits. They're going to force individuals to go back to these jobs where the pay hasn't increased, the work is probably going to be worse, and at the same time, this so-called job market is not looking good. Keep in mind, I said back on the previous podcast, the job market forecast they were expecting for this month didn't come the way they thought it was. It was maybe a quarter of what they believed to be. It was supposed to be 1 million jobs supposed to be added. I don't think it was a little over 266,000. It was not the job fallout that they were expecting. So again, this is Republicans setting the scene. That Joe Biden's stimulus plan didn't work. That, if we take away the unemployment benefits and force people to go to work, then they're still going to be mad that nothing has changed. But the funny part is, these are the same, these guys who are conservatives, there's not one broke person among them. Think about that. Rich man telling a poor man that you can't enjoy a little bit of help because we need you working to make us rich. Like I said, I've never seen a broke conservative. I've never seen a broke conservative politician. Have you? But moving right along, guys. Like I said, I'm talking about what's going on. Keep in mind, the Republicans are really setting up for next year. Even more so that they're starting, like I said before, you've seen the rule changes that have happened. Arizona is joining that list.
States impose new voting restrictions following the divisive 2020 election and former President Trump's false claims of widespread fraud. Here's a look at the new voting laws by the numbers. 12 states have recently enacted new voting restrictions. Georgia and Florida, for example, now have more rigid voter ID requirements, make absentee voting harder, and limit the use of ballot drop boxes, among other restrictions. In just 5 months, 26 new voting restrictions were enacted nationwide. That's nearly double the number in all of 2019 and 2020 combined, and more could be coming. At least 404 voting restriction bills have been introduced in 48 state legislatures, according to the Brennan Center and our partners at 538. 63 of them have already passed at least one step of the legislative process, while others have already failed or haven't progressed beyond the committee stage. And finally, nearly 90% of the voting restriction bills were sponsored primarily or entirely by Republicans, according to 538's analysis.
Should tell you a lot. 12 states, over 30 bills, and so far a few of them have passed. Again, I don't mean to be the boy who cried wolf, but just like I want to show the video because the video itself said that a lot of these bills, you have yet to see one Democratic bill outside of the Voting Rights Act. Of the Voting Rights Act, which is still again needing to be passed. If the Voting Rights Act is passed, everything that these Republicans are doing will be nullified. But it needs to pass because it needs to be done. Because I kept saying, you guys, if voting didn't matter, why are Republicans changing? Why are Republicans pushing the goalposts? Why are Republicans adding stipulations? Why are Republicans, and I will keep saying Republicans because, like I said before, I have yet to see a Democratic initiative outside of the Voting Rights Act get pushed forward because every other state is trying to make it harder for minorities to vote. But yet not one black conservative has brought that up. I'm looking at you, Candace, who's unfortunately here in Nashville. But again, I also wanted to bring up the fact of the actual video itself, in which, again, Arizona governor has sat there and said, quote unquote, we will, they said on the, Arizona governor signed a bill Tuesday, which will remove the word permanent from the state's permanent early voting list, which basically allows them to go back and purge voters from the registry. So those who are trying to vote may actually might find themselves in a shock, because if your vote is, let's say for example, if your registry is literally and figuratively purged, then you have to re-register all over again. But there's not a sign of you getting a notice. There's not a sign of you getting notified in any way about your placement. You might find out on the day thereof and go, I'm sorry, sir, you have to re-register. And depending on the state, it may take you a day or so. You might not be able to register on the spot and go vote. And that alone is the Republican setup. And that is exactly what I'm talking on, guys. And this is why I say before, these Republicans are setting the field. Even more so that, again, with Liz Cheney, they decided to go ahead and give her the axe today.
Had the conference meeting. I am absolutely committed, as I said last night, as I said just now to my colleagues, that we must go forward based on truth. We cannot both embrace the big lie and embrace the Constitution. And going forward, the nation needs it. The nation needs a strong Republican Party. The nation needs a party that is based upon fundamental principles of conservatism. And I am committed and dedicated to ensuring that that's how this party goes forward, and I plan to lead the fight to do that.
Congresswoman, how concerned are you that former President Trump might end up back in the Oval Office, and what are you prepared to do to prevent it?
I will do everything I can to ensure that the former president never again gets anywhere near the Oval Office. We have seen the danger that he continues to provoke with his language. We have seen his lack of commitment and dedication to the Constitution, and I think it's very important that we make sure whomever we elect is somebody who will be faithful to the Constitution.
Last question. Do you feel betrayed by today's vote?
I do not. I think that it is an indication of where the Republican Party is, and I think that the party is in a place that we've got to bring it back from, and we've got to get back to a position where we are a party that can fight for conservative principles, that can fight for substance. We cannot be dragged backward by the very dangerous lies of a former president.
Now, yeah, that was former GOP candidate Liz Cheney, number 3 in the GOP conservative, and has now been relieved of her duties following a vote by the House by Kevin McCarthy. Now, again, for all those that don't remember, Liz Cheney's only mortal sin, guys, was that she voted to impeach then President Dorito. That was it. Nothing else. No scandals, no drug-induced, no caught with a gay lover, no caught with a bunch of cocaine off a stripper's ass or anything of that nature. She simply voted along with three other Republicans to impeach Donald Trump at the time. And Republicans now decide that Liz Cheney had to go. Let's not forget the fact of Matt Gaetz, Gatz, however you say his name. He just looks like a douche. He reminds me of Tucker Carlson. He reminds me of Tucker Carlson's older brother, who just looks like he has a face you want to punch. But let's not forget Matt Gaetz, who is still fighting allegations of of wild drug-filled orgies and possible relationships with underage girls. Keep in mind, he's still fighting that. Let's not forget Marjorie Taylor Greene, who supported QAnon, who sat there and slurred fellow congresspeople to where they had to move her down the hall. She also sat there and was defiant about the mask mandate. She was defiant about a number of things. Even more so to the point to where her budget responsibilities as far as committees, things of that nature, were all removed from her. And yet, these two individuals are still in Congress. But Kevin McCarthy decided that above all else, that Liz Cheney had to go. Ladies and gentlemen, Liz Cheney said it best in that post interview right now. We should all be very concerned that Donald Trump is still running the Republican Party. And if you don't think that if Donald Trump is not in jail by 2024, he will be running. Trust me, trust and believe. If Donald Trump is not in an orange jumpsuit before 2024, trust me, in 2024, he will be running. And his Republican Party have already started setting the deck. We should be concerned. We should be highly concerned. Because the simple fact of the matter is, they got rid of somebody for doing the right thing, but kept the other ones in there for what? Entertainment? I'm like, you can go down the list. You really could. But it makes no sense at this point why Liz Cheney above all else. And I said, all I can think of is that out of all the Republicans, because again, Republicans toe that party line, but the simple fact of the matter is, she did the one thing that a lot of them wouldn't do. And again, that tells you exactly what you need to know about the Republican Party and the hold that Donald Trump still has on them. But moving forward, we do have some information about Derek Chauvin that actually might be on looking up.
Involving convicted murderer Derek Chauvin. A Minnesota judge has just ruled that Chauvin abused his authority as a police officer when he restrained George Floyd last year. That decision paves the way for the former Minneapolis police officer to get a longer sentence. NBC's Gabe Gutierrez has been covering this story from the very beginning. So, Gabe, explain the thinking here from Judge Cahill behind the ruling and what happens next for Derek Chauvin.
Hi there, Craig. Well, if you remember, during the trial coverage, you heard a lot about aggravating factors, and that is what the judge decided today, basically saying that there were aggravating factors present and that will likely mean a longer sentence for Derek Chauvin. Among those aggravating factors, that he abused his authority as a police officer and that he treated George Floyd with particular cruelty. Also, that he pinned Floyd down in the presence of children. Of course, that's obvious if you saw the testimony. A 9-year-old girl testified that Floyd was pinned right in front of her. The judge did, however, disagree with prosecutors, and he said that they did not prove that Floyd was particularly vulnerable. Now, basically, what this all means, Craig, is that if you look at the sentencing guidelines, this most serious charge of second-degree murder averaged 12.5-year prison sentence. But with these aggravating factors, that's kicked up all the way to up to 40 years in prison. And that's what we had been talking about when we said that Chauvin faced up to 40 years in prison. Now, legal experts do say, however, Craig, that he's unlikely to get that much. He could potentially only get around 30 years, depending on, time off for good behavior, and then see the rest on parole. But we're all waiting to see what happens. This basically sets the stage for Derek Chauvin's sentencing, now set for June 25th. By the way, Craig, the last week, those federal civil rights indictments came down. If Chauvin were convicted on those federal civil rights charges, that sentence would be served at the same time of his state charges. And by the way, the 3 other officers involved in this case, they're still set to go to trial later this summer.
So what that basically means, guys, is that we went from a possible, because at first they were thinking, well, he might get 15 years, he may get 20 years, because keep in mind, I sat there and said there was a big difference between the Mohammed Noor case and the Amber Geiger case, because both those cases were around manslaughter. They didn't include a murder charge. Derek Chauvin's case includes a second and third degree murder charge. So he possibly can get more, especially with the fact that now the judge has ruled that he did abuse his authority as a law enforcement officer, which meant that, of course, those additional charges can be thrown out and that his record would not be used as leniency. I still think the man needs to get about 40 to 45 years. Personally, for me, life imprisonment would be best, but that's only if hate crimes are actually added. We will follow that story as it comes along, because that man does need to, in my opinion, if you take a life, your life is over. That's how it should be. But can't really get what we want. Also in another case, the family of Andrew Brown did actually get to see a lot of the video. Turns out they got to see more than 20 seconds. But here's the older brother actually talking about what he's seen.
Got a clearer idea of what happened when the 42-year-old was shot and killed by deputies almost 3 weeks ago in Elizabeth City, North Carolina.
What we saw on that video was an unjustified killing.
Following days of protests, a judge ordered the sheriff to allow the family and their attorney to view 18 minutes and 40 seconds of the 118 minutes of video recorded by deputies that day.
We were able to see Mr. Brown sitting in his vehicle as he was ambushed and as the sheriff's office made their way to his residence. Appearing to be surprised, it appears that he was possibly on the phone. At all times, his hands were visible. At all times, you could see that he was not a threat. He wasn't in the wrong at all. What's in the light, what's in the dark gonna come to the light.
Deputies were executing an arrest warrant. The 42-year-old was in his car. As deputies approached, authorities say Brown drove off and hit at least one officer.
We did not see any actions on Mr. Brown's part where he made contact with them or tried to go in their direction.
The SWAT team opened fire. According to a family-ordered autopsy, a final deadly shot hitting Brown in the back of his head. In court 2 weeks ago, a lawyer representing the deputies said they were justified.
We believe that the shooting was justified.
Lawyers for the Brown family say the district attorney, Andrew Womble, should recuse himself because he has worked with deputies for years without directly responding. The DA says he took an oath to abide by North Carolina law.
For Alex Roman, today's
Yeah, they got away from me. So that got really away from me. I didn't think it. I was trying to hurry up and press stop. So again, with Andrew Brown, guys, it's a story that we're still following just because. And I found it interesting that, of course, the judge allowed the family to see the video. Well, majority of it, I guess. And they just confirmed what they said. I mean, it just confirms what they already know. But again, the judge itself has not released the video to the public. Look, I've said it before, I'm going to say it again. I think that the judge doesn't want to release it to the public just because they don't want another George Floyd. I have sat there and said it best. If it wasn't for the actions of that young woman getting it out for the world to see, I don't think we would have gotten the conviction with Derek Chauvin on George Floyd. And now with Antonio Brown and those deputies, they're keeping those videos close to the chest because, again, they don't want. It's like they don't want the court of public opinion. I get it. And I get it, to preserve the integrity of the case and due process. I get it. But at the same time, some things are so evident that, when you have overwhelming evidence against something, it obviously is true. And again, until more video gets released, all we can do is go off what the family said, and they said, well, all we can do is sit there and say yes, that for the simple fact of the matter that they killed him. But again, until we get the video, until the judge releases the video, unfortunately, the only people that have seen it are the deputies and the Brown family, which again, that's another story that we'll definitely keep up with. The last story I got, guys, before we get to our feel-good segment, again, it kind of goes, like I said, it kind of falls in with police reform, especially in New York, where, again, this story was so crazy that it just has to be heard.
3 NYPD officers in Queens got arrested, accused of being corrupt. The FBI says those cops were involved in several schemes, including taking cash payoffs from a towing firm to get first dibs on tows at accident scenes. Chief investigative reporter Jonathan Dietz broke news of the arrest this morning, and he joins us now with more. John?
Adam, one of the cops is allegedly on tape boasting he was by far the worst cop in the 105th precinct in Queens. Prosecutors say he not only helped orchestrate the corrupt towing scheme, but after retiring, he offered to help a drug gang. And they say he boasted of racist conduct on and off the job. 3 NYPD cops allegedly took thousands in cash payoffs to give business to one towing company. In over 100 accidents in Queens, the FBI says the 3 officers called that one towing company, illegally looking up accident victim information to pass on through the towing firm to give to a law firm for possible accident-related lawsuits. U.S. Attorney Mark Lesko says the 3 officers shamelessly violated their oaths of office and the public trust by trading their badges for cash payments. The 3 officers allegedly ran the scheme from 2016 out of the 105th precinct. The FBI arrested the 3 at their Long Island homes this morning. Robert Smith, the alleged ringleader, found in Plainview, Robert Hassett, arrested near Farmingville, and Heather Bush in Massapequa. Prosecutors say Smith, who retired in 2020, is also on tape offering to deliver heroin for a drug gang. And they say Smith was recorded bragging about uncharged crimes in the years he worked in the 105. And after he retired, at times using racist language. Bro, I robbed everyone. Bro, I point my gun out the window at and watch their reaction and drive away. Now the real Smith will shine. I even shaved my head. Klan. Smith pleaded not guilty in Brooklyn federal court and was ordered held without bail. NYPD Commissioner Shea immediately suspended current officers Bush and Hassett without pay, saying there's zero tolerance for this alleged corruption. As part of the towing scheme, the officers allegedly picked up thousands in cash in a set mailbox. With Smith retiring, he allegedly recruited Officer Bush to step in and take his place. Officers Hassett and Bush were being arraigned this afternoon, pleading not guilty to the charges. We're attempting to hear from their attorneys as they leave the courthouse.
Define. I thought I was watching The Party for a second. Like, the level of just... It was definitely corruption. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. There was definitely corruption there, guys. Especially in cooperation, collusion. And on top of that, the fact that they did abuse their power. I mean, if that is not an example that police reform is needed, I don't know what else to tell you. That's a story. That's a story where I had to go back and make sure I wasn't reading The Onion or reading a Martin Scorsese novel, because that's what it kind of felt like. But again, that's what I say about police reform. To think, either you're killing minorities and getting away with it, or you're abusing your badge and making extra money on the side. And then at the same time, participating in legal activities yourself. Kind of says a lot. But again, guys, but that's really all that we got. We're going to go to move on to our feel-good segment, because I usually do this on the weekends. Like I said, usually on the weekends, it's Saturday, it's sunny. You just want to go out and enjoy yourself as we get closer and closer to summer. Yay, I am a winter person. I hate summer. I hate summer with a passion. But the whole point about the Feel Good News segment is, to make you feel good, to restore your faith in humanity a little bit, and, try to get us through the day. And since we're in the middle of the week on Hump Day, this story, again, I've always said it, kids just have it right more than we do as an adult, especially in the things about taking care of people.
Americans look to Washington for leadership. Well, and we found it, along with compassion from an unexpected source. Here's CBS's Chris Van Cleve.
In the shadow of a symbol of American accomplishment sits a park lined with tents that most in the nation's capital choose to forget.
We got Chick-fil-A tonight.
But not 8-year-old Zoheb Beg. Along with homeless advocate Sharon Wise, the Virginia third grader is handing out donated meals and care packages of socks, masks, and toiletries.
It doesn't matter how old you are, you can help someone.
So many people drive by these folks every day and don't stop. What made you want to stop?
Because they don't really have a lot of stuff like we do, so I really want to help them.
When we first met Beg last April, he was collecting shower caps, gloves, and masks from local hotels for the hospital staff that saved him from a tumor when he was 4. How much stuff did you get?
6,009 PPEs.
Now, Zoheb, who calls himself the Chief Kindness Officer, is expanding his efforts. And inspiring friends and neighbors to help, too, filling bags of essentials for the homeless and families with sick children staying at D.C.'s Ronald McDonald House. All of it, Beg got companies to donate.
You just have to find a problem and find one solution.
A big idea from a little boy with an even bigger heart.
Thank you.
Chris Van Cleve.
Think about that. I mean, 8 years old. and already wants to help people. I say it once and I'll say it best. It just seems when it comes to kids, I just think they got it right. And I like to think that somewhere down the line that adults will get it. But sometimes, like I said, sometimes the answer that we need in life is to look to kids. Because kids themselves just seem to have it more figured out than we do as adults. But I like the fact, like I said, it's just one random act of kindness can really help somebody. And I'll say this at the end of every podcast, and will not care. It's just that if you have the ability to make someone feel great, whether it's a kind word, a kind gesture, encouragement, things of that nature, whatever you can do to perk up someone else's day, do it. The world could use more of it. But before I do get out of here, guys, I do want to sit there and thank you all for watching this podcast. I certainly appreciate it, for the comments, things of that nature. And I also do want to let my buddy Bond know. I'm talking about Big VZA Dot, who was somewhere. He's somewhere around here. Anyway, Big VZA Dot also, I do want to plug him as well. His Facebook page, at Big VZA Dot, as you currently see here, you can definitely go to his video section to basically see the videos that he's done. He actually just recently got through doing VST and on RAF. Now, what the VST is, the news podcast. That news could be music, video games, or television. I usually call Vaughn the king of the weird trailers because he always seems to find by far the weirdest stuff out there, which makes me question our friendship sometimes, but I still love him. He also does have RAF, which is like America's Funniest Home Videos done by World Star. It's basically meant for the grown and up, not for kids, because we do get into some adult humor, but adult humor does make the world go round, and what he definitely does do about that. He also does do his pop-up show called Funkin' Around, which I think he just did one today, actually. Hang on a second. And that's all I can play, because if I play any more, he'd charge me. But as you can see, he does actually do beats, and what's a Funkin' Around is, a display of his beats, of his production, I guess is the best way I could put that. But also, his beats are for sale as well, so definitely hit up Vaughn at Big VZA Dot, and he'll definitely teach you the process of how to actually get that beat if you're interested in it. But definitely check out Big VZA Dot there, all of his podcast things of that nature on his Facebook, and also Big VZA Dot on all social medias. And we definitely appreciate it. Definitely like and share, because he is definitely an interesting voice that needs to be heard. Aside from yours truly, guys, the link at the bottom, if you copy and paste that into your browser, will take you to my link tree for the YouTube and Facebook pages for all of my podcasts, How the Frack We Got Here, Get Bit, and of course the Off Limits podcast. My scheduling hasn't really changed that much, guys. Every Wednesday from 8:30 to 10 is the midweek edition of How the Frack We Got Here you're currently watching right now. This Friday from 8:30 to 10, the gang will be back together again. Get Bit, which is my video game, anime, comic book, and wrestling podcast. Because it's been a while since I talked about wrestling. I think this Friday I'm definitely going to talk about it, because we need to talk about the state of wrestling, and right now I'm a little concerned. But that's definitely a podcast for blurs and nerds that like to join. So definitely, hopefully see you guys this Friday night. Saturday morning from 10 a.m. to noon is the weekend edition of How the Frack We Got Here. Of course, follow a little bit later on that night, between 8:30 to 10 p.m. is the very adult, the very grown Off Limits podcast, where we do talk about anything and everything, and I do mean anything and everything. But we do so just because it needs to be talked about, and we're not going to shy away from it, like systemic racism in Tennessee. Anyway, but all of my shows, like I said before, bottom of the list there, if you copy and paste that into your browser. Let me not forget that the boy also does travel, Uncle Obi's Adventures and More, also on Facebook. So if you are traveling and want to travel, whether it's down the street, across state, or across the pond, please let me know by reaching out to me, William Buchanan, here on Facebook, or Uncle Obi's Adventures and More on Facebook. Either way, let me know about your travel. I definitely want to help with that. My $100 referral is still in effect for the time being, and folks have been making buku bucks off of it. So just to quickly explain the referral, you send somebody to me, they book travel with me, whether it's airfare, travel, hotel, or rental, and as long as they take their trip, you get paid. I mean, that's pretty much it. They take the travel, I pay you back, because again, I like paying it forward. But definitely is no limits on referral for that. So with that being said, guys, like I said before, if you're watching this on the playback once it's posted, please comment. I still want to know your opinions on all the subjects I covered tonight. And like I said about How the Frack We Got Here, it's all about staying informed. We are not trying to change opinions. We're not trying to persuade you. We are simply just trying to inform you with the facts and allow you to make up your mind for yourself, as the old television stations of old used to do. Because we do a lot better as a society once we're informed. When we're uninformed, you get Dorito. When we're informed, we get our first Madam Vice President who is black. Until Michelle Obama runs for president. Hoping. Anyway, with that being said, guys, I do thank you all for watching. Please take care of yourselves and each other, and we'll get through this. Peace.